punch a hole in the wall, they act up in school, they become disruptive in the community, and that's a child that's dealing with a lot of stress from whatever source the stress is coming from. And the social intelligence really focuses on knowing how to mix and mingle in different environments. Many kids from underserved communities go into the school system with those same mentalities and behaviors and mannerisms, assuming that it's okay. And that's a clear indication that they lack social intelligence. And you have to be able to know that in this environment, you don't do that. It may be acceptable where you're from because that's what the norm is or the culture is, and it's okay to be that way. It's like if I go to Puerto Rico and all they do is speak Spanish, well then I need to learn how to speak Spanish so that I can relate well to the people. And so when I come back to the States, then I speak English because that's what the language is. So it's that idea of knowing how to conduct yourself with the proper etiquettes in different environments that you go in. And I think it's a critical attribute that many of our kids in the lower sector lack. And so, you know, that's what I provide through programs.
Why is it so important to bring up the issue of peer pressure? I mean, because we have a lot of our youth, they feel like they got to do what the other person is doing, and they do things that they shouldn't do.
I totally agree with you, and I was one of those kids too, man.
Right.
One of the things from my own personal journey, and even I see when I work with clients today, is that there's an insecurity that develops from the environment. So let's say, for example, hypothetically speaking, I'm a gifted mathematician, and I'm 10 years old, and I know how to quantify things and add and subtract, multiply, you know, all that good stuff. And I go into a community where no one else knows how to do math as well as I do, and I start presenting some of my gifts of being a mathematician, and everyone starts making fun of me. They think it's weird, it's awkward, it's unusual. And as a result of that collaborative picking or making fun of that gift, I become insecure about it, the thing that's natural to me. And now I suppress it. I don't want to show it anymore. So instead of me showing what makes me unique, I'd rather go along with whatever everybody else is doing in order to fit in and be socially safe. And what you find is that you have a mass of children in our communities who are denying themselves in order to become something that they're not. And that's what's causing them a lot of misery, a lot of mistakes, a lot of bad choices, because they are afraid now to be who they were truly destined to be. And so I think that's why peer pressure is so prevalent. Gangs are so prevalent. It's easy to follow along, especially if you don't know yourself. The environment will define you.
How do you tell that youth that it only takes one bad decision to mess up your life forever?
Very challenging, because all of our youth that we see today are constructed so differently. They have different gifts, they have different experiences, and what works for one won't work for another. We can all look at the same thing and envision something totally different based upon our past experiences. And so one of the things I tell parents primarily is to continue loving your child. Love him or her as if they were what you wanted them to be. And the reality is a child cannot change in an environment if the environment doesn't change. And so many parents oftentimes come to me with their child, hey, can you change him or can you change her? Can you help them because they're not doing right? But the reality is, in order for them to do right, the environment also has to be supportive and be right by them. And you know, the reality is, and I'm gonna step on some toes when I say this, parents need to change as well. And oftentimes they sort of exacerbate or make the problems worse for the child by the way that they are. But it's in their subconscious or their unknown, if you will, and they don't recognize it, and it causes the continued grief, and strife in the relationship between the child.
Now, how do you deal with the parents, the family where there's only a single parent and they have to work 2 jobs and they're never at home and they're really not seeing? So how do you counsel that individual, that child, to say, okay, you still have to do right even though you don't have someone watching over you? Right,
and it's not. I would encourage that parent in that predicament to identify programs in the community, and there are a plethora of programs in Charlotte that can help youth after school. The unfortunate thing is that some of these things carry costs, but there are also some that are low cost or free. And I would encourage parents to take advantage of those, do the research and take advantage of those, because it's not easy raising a child as a single parent. My mother was a single parent, and she did a phenomenal job with me, but I strayed at one point in time. and the Lord saved me. The Lord, kept me safe in my days when I was running the streets. And I had a praying mother, and I didn't have the luxury of programs or anything like that, which is why I was so involved in the streets at one point in time. But I think, involving the child in extracurricular programming where he can be around positive supports, coaches, mentors, other kids that are doing right things, that can influence him just as much as the negative influences.
Kareem, I also heard that you're a writer.
Yeah.
Tell all us a little bit about that, and what made you want to be a writer?
I'm a writer. I'll say that I'm attempting to write a book. That's what I'll say. I'm not really a prolific writer, but I feel like I have a story to tell. With all my experiences in law enforcement, how I grew up, how I transitioned into counseling, and where I'm going, I think God has appointed me to do something great with what He's given me, the experiences that He's given me, and it's my duty to share it. And so I'm taking advantage of that opportunity and stretching beyond my current limitations and challenging my fears and the illusions of these fears. And I chose to write a book. I don't have a title quite figured out yet. The content is laid out, and I'm still working on the edits. But it's a book that talks about my law enforcement career, what I observed, what I experienced, and how I believe the current climate of community trust can be healed or fixed with regards to involving mental health counseling or making it a mandated thing in law enforcement training. I think that law enforcement training should require police officers to do mandated counseling, like they do mandated training for all things or get an annual checkup. I think it should be mandated across all states. And I think that would help officers lower their fears about being socially desirable or fit for duty if this was a mandated program.
I know you said earlier that you raised by your mother. Let's talk a little bit about your mother and how she inspired you to the man that you are today.
Oh, man. My mother pulled double duty. When I say double duty, I'm talking about she represented the pillars of what it means to be a loving and a wonderful human. She's a go-getter. She's very compassionate, very ambitious, a woman who knows how to make something out of nothing. She's very resourceful, very supportive, very loving. Even when I wasn't able to love myself at one point in time, my mother's love, I think, rescued me on many occasions. And she's a God-fearing woman, and she loves church, and she prays for me all the time, and she's just my number one fan. And I think, again, that's the ingredient that I believe all people need to do well. Love. Love creates the conditions that help people grow and manifest into that which they were destined to be. And I thank my mother for that, because I think a lot of what she's done for me growing up in terms of my work ethic, my desire to do or be the best that I can be or make my best better came from my mother. And watching her and how hard she worked, being a person who came from Jamaica, got her citizenship and just really done well for herself. So kudos to her for this final product that's still in the making.
If you had one thing to say to your mother today, what would it be?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ma. Because of you, I am. Thank you.
And you turned out to be a great guy.
All day. You know
Yeah.
it is.
And the sky's the limit to what all Kareem can do in life. What's your ultimate goal in life?
I want to make sure that by the time I'm called home to that place in the sky, I have nothing left in my tank, and I've done all that I could do. I left no stone unturned, and he'll say, "Very well, my good and faithful servant." That's my goal. I don't know what that looks like on that day, but that's what I'm striving for.
So where do you see yourself at 5 years from now?
5 years from now, I see anything that I'm doing very well. I see myself being an advocate in the community for issues that complicate the growth and the healing of our community, especially the Black community. I'm very passionate about helping my people, and I see myself on a grander scale. I see myself touring the states and the world, sharing my message of hope and healing for all people who are impacted by something unfortunate.
what advice do you give to our youth in our community who's out there making those bad decisions? And what do you say they should do right now before they go out there and do that?
I would encourage them to be courageous and be committed to who they were before the stuff happened. The experiences that made them feel hurt, the experiences that disappointed them, the experiences that made them feel abandoned, the experiences that made them feel rejected. I would encourage them to be courageous about remaining committed to faith over fear and the person that they were before those terrible incidents or experiences occurred. Because the reality is no one is born bad. I think we turn at some point because of experiences and people that have come into our lives and perhaps are toxic, and then they turn, and then people turn as a result of those experiences. But I would encourage that young man or that young woman to be courageous and be hopeful, because tomorrow is better if they just hang on.
And what do you tell that youth after he has made that bad decision, and how does he deal with life after making a decision that you knew was wrong?
Johnny McClurkin had a wonderful song. We fall down, but we get back up. And I think that's just what it is. It's not about how many times you fall, but it's about how many times you can get up. And if you're still above the dirt, is what I usually say. If you're still above the dirt, you still have an opportunity to make things right. And don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. Keep trying. Keep trying.
So I know you do a lot. Okay, we're running short on time. If someone want to get in contact with you, Kareem, how would they go about doing that?
Absolutely. They can. I have two websites. One for Achieving Success on Purpose, which is www.asopofcharlotte.org, or my private practice, which is www.selftalkcounseling.com. And all the information for contact is on those websites, and they can reach me that way.
Thank you, Kareem, for coming on the
I
show.
appreciate you, Paul.
Anytime you want to come back, you more than welcome to come back.
You got it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching the show. We're expecting more and more things out of Kareem in life. And just tell us exactly what you want to tell the viewing audience. You know what I'm saying? As far as what do you expect as far as yourself, as far as counseling, as far as any other thing that makes Kareem smile?
I would say this, man. It's all about making my best better every day that I have an opportunity to do so. One of the things I learned in my journey and my evolution in life is that my greatest obstacle was always me. It was never my environment. It was never somebody else. It was never her or him. It was always me. And once I changed me, the environment changed. The people who didn't mean me no well, or the people who weren't really for me, faded away. Because what I learned is that I attracted fake friends with my fake facade.
Correct.
And I had to change that in order to tap into that which I believe God had for me. So be real with yourself and get out your own way.
Thank you, sir.
All day.
Thank you for watching the show, ladies and gentlemen. You be encouraged.